Well, it is, because it would have
Yes,
said, okay.
it started, yes.
Okay. Now, can you see my shared screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. I just want to go over a few things before we get into the next module. We have office hours from 12:45 to 1:45 on the predictable structures. I'm showing you here on the digital handout that you have. But I wanted you to see that module 2 should be over around 11:45. Then we were going to take lunch. And then the setting up the learning outcomes is from 12:30 to 12:45, and that takes 15 minutes, because then you will be on your own. So we were just wondering if you would prefer to just have me set you up for the learning outcomes before you go to lunch. Then you don't have to come back. Then we would still take lunch, and then after lunch is over at 12:45, we would still have our office hours. And then some people were asking us about how do you sign up for office hours, and that's a really good question. And so we just said today, just stay on if you're interested in meeting with us, and then we can decide if we're going to talk over the phone, if you have something you want to talk about privately, or if you want to just email, or if you want to just ask us right then and there, so that we can figure that out this afternoon. So if you would like to have the outcomes before lunch, so then you're on your own. If you don't have any questions or want to meet with us, just write a yes in the chat box. If you say no, you can put a no, just so that we can get a consensus, because this doesn't have a poll or anything yet in Teams, so that we can't do that. And there was some questions about the book club, so I want to clarify that. In the book club expectations, which I'm opening right here, this is where the book choices are, and it's for year 2 only. These are the books that you could select from and then sign up on the sign-up sheet. Year 1 is only doing the art of coaching right here. And so that's the book for year 1. And year 2 can choose from this curated list. Then there was the question of where the article was for year 2 to read. And, you know, that's a good question, and I'll find that. I thought I knew where it was, but I'm not seeing it, so I may have to put it in the in the chat box for you, because I seriously don't see. Oh, there it is, right here. In module 1, it says 10 things every literacy educator should know about research. This is for year 2 to read, because if you see right above it, year 1, by next week, you read The Art of Coaching, Chapter 1. And just annotate it, and you can type up some summary notes or whatever, because starting next month, we will use Seesaw, and that's where you'll put your notes. So if you want to type it up, then you could cut and paste it and put it into Seesaw once we start that next month. Were there any other questions? I think those are the only questions. If there's anything else, just put it in the chat, and when we take a break, I'll do my best to find the answers for you. So I'm going to unshare so that Sandy can take over. I'm seeing a lot of yeses about.
Yes, I believe the yeses have won. Just so you know.
Oh boy, there are a lot of yeses. I don't see any no's, I guess.
Okay. And Jennifer's part after this is not going to take that long, so you're going to be great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And if y'all have any questions, I'm watching the chat box, so just stick it in there if you have any questions.
Hold on. I know what I forgot to do. There we go. All right. Jennifer, do you see that?
Yes, you just need to put it in present. There you go. Yes, ma'am.
Got it. You read my mind. All right. Okay, so I know you're two coaches that we have talked about appreciative inquiry before, and in making in our entire group of LSs that planned this for you, we had conversation about should we do this again since you'd already had it. But the answer was, of course, yes, because and this is how, and I think Jennifer would feel the same way. You just can't get enough of this to think as far as your thinking. It really takes it's a very thoughtful process. And in the first couple of years of Read to Succeed, we didn't, our coaching model was a little different. But as the years have progressed, and this is my third year now to teach with this kind of newer way of doing it, it's I think much better. And so we want you to thoughtfully approach these slides, as even though you may have seen some of them in year two or last year in year one. All right, so Jennifer, we're already recording. All right, I'm going to go over the learning targets of this section. I can honor the 3 human universal needs. I can utilize the 8 assumptions of appreciative inquiry as a standard within my position as a coach. I can practice the tenets of appreciative inquiry in my daily work as a coach, and I can participate in a clearness committee to elevate others' reflections and deeper thinking around their concerns. All right, today we're looking at standard 6 of those standards that we mentioned earlier, and those are the professional learning and leadership standards that we're supporting today. So we're going to use the See, Think, Wonder approach to the next slide, which actually is a picture. And so you might just want to, in your journal, jot down, what do you see? What do you think is going on? And your wonderings. So see, think, and wonder. Right, so we're going to take a look at this appreciative inquiry picture, and you're going to use your See, Think, Wonder. So here are some guiding questions. What comes to mind as you view this image? If you had to create an image that would replace this image, what might you include in your new image? All right, we need a few people to unmute and tell us what you see.
I like the fact that they actually know they're missing something. Sometimes we don't even know what we're missing.
Okay, wonderful.
It's your perspective of what you're looking at, what you see.
Okay.
I think it's important to see that what we focus on matters, and that can drive what we do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So the left side looks like a growth mindset, whereas the right side does not.
Okay, great.
I probably see this differently, but 15 years in the classroom, sometimes I look at the asset base and think of teachers knowing all the different instructional resources that are out there, and it's huge, it's massive, and then you've got the deficits, but it's like, how do you get from this huge amount of resources and figure out where to put it? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's the sorting through.
Yes.
You've got
that's a great way to look at this. Yes. Because I think all those resources are a good thing. So that would be the asset. All right, what do you think? Let's go to think. What are you thinking as you look at this image?
I think of a, sorry. I think of a workshop model, and I feel like a workshop model gears us more towards an asset based. What is it that a student or a teacher is capable of doing, and how do we start from there to build areas of potential growth?
Mm.
I'm thinking of looking at both. So looking at where our deficits lie, but then looking at what we have to fill those gaps.
Okay. I'm going to share that just from what I'm thinking is that from my years in special education, which was about 10 of them, one of the reasons I wanted to leave was because we only, it seemed, looked at the deficits.
It reminds me of reading recovery training where we focus on the strengths of the students in order to fill in those deficits that they have.
Okay, how about wonders? Anybody got a wondering now that you've heard the conversation?
I'm noticing the body language of the two, I guess, characters in the image and how just different they are, and wondering which one do we want to possess each day.
I don't think I want to be that one with my finger pointing.
I wonder how they will take the assets to fill the deficits.
Okay.
I wonder what protocols and practices we have in place that reinforce deficit focus, like a singular focus on a particular assessment.
Okay. How did we get there? Anybody else? Great exercise for teachers, y'all. This is just you could use this in so many different ways. Moving on. One of the things that we have become is eloquent articulators of what is wrong. But power flows where the attention goes. I would like for you to write in your journal about what you are giving your attention to right now. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do that. And as you move to kind of wrap up your comments about where your attention is going, if you can think of something else that you wish your attention was focused on, you can write that as well. Okay. All right. All right, we're going to move on. Every human being has a need to have a voice and be heard, be seen as essential to the group, and be seen as unique and exceptional. So how are we honoring these needs virtually? Take a minute and jot down in your journal how these are being honored in your schools, in your classrooms, and in this PLC. Having a voice and being heard, being essential to the group, and being seen as unique and exceptional. I'll give you just a few minutes to do that. Jot in your journal, how are these things being honored in your schools, in your classrooms, and this PLC? All right, so one of the things that I was thinking as I was looking at this list, and especially virtually, and we have so many teachers and children on virtually, how important this has become. And I think that as we move through the year, we are going to do our very best to honor these three universal needs. And I think breakout rooms are going to really help. I think the smaller groups are going to really help. And so while you may walk away today and not feel like we've met all of your needs, I do think as we move through this, we will definitely continue to grow. All right, so now we're going to talk about assumptions just for the next two slides. And assumptions are statements or rules that explain what a group generally believes. They must be made visible and discussed before anyone can be sure of the group's shared beliefs to determine if they are relevant and valid. So here are the 8 assumptions, and we want you to read through these to yourself. Just read the 8. We're going to focus on number 8 today. But read through these yourself and you want to make some kind of connection. So just jot down all the connections you can think of, or maybe some disconnects with your group or organization. Today we'll be focusing on number 8, and that would be in the lens of home and personal and work and professional. So just go down the list, jot down, you're going to get this list later, but jot down some connections or some disconnects about these. And I am going to give you a few minutes to shout out or open your mic about some of the connections or disconnects of of appreciative inquiry.
Oh, you did? Okay, so, as for when you volume?
Jennifer, you can mute.
Okay. You, and then you also have.
The participant.
I love it.
Now you need to unmute yourself again because I muted everybody. Sandy, unmute yourself. I muted everyone.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me go back where I was. There. We're good now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, if you're ready, you can begin to chat to put some connections to this list in the chat, and Jennifer can just read some out. That might be the quickest way to do it, or disconnects. Or if you've made a connection you'd like to unmic and tell us, that's fine too.
What we focus on becomes our reality. 5 and 6 resonated with me. We are making instructional shifts at my school. It is helpful to validate what teachers are comfortable with as we learn and grow together. Growth mindset, creating meaningful moments. Oops, that went too fast. Positive talk, positive words, and encouragement. I connect with number 1. Everyone has something to contribute that works. Be you on purpose. Number 6, not holding on to grudges. That can really hurt coaching relationships. Focus on positive. I think 8 relates to school culture. Everyone's reality is different. Circumstances have a major impact. Our students need to hear growth mindset language and be held to high expectations. Number 2 and 8. How our words create what we live in stressful times. Be aware of this so we don't make a situation worse. Focus on using language that tells us what is wrong, what is working. Be confident enough to change what's not working since we have a lot right. It is important to value differences. It is important to agree to disagree respectfully.
Yes. So I think you can see how this can relate in your personal life. I could probably name something for every one of those in my personal life and then turn it around and also do it in my work life, professional life. All right. So the language we use creates our reality. Deficit language can lead to deficit thinking. So what we would like for you to do is to go to your journal and think about a conversation that you have had recently. Highlight some examples and some non-examples of positive discourse and think about how it made you feel. What are some ways you might shift? And then now consider how language is used in our virtual hybrid reality, because that is so real for many of our teachers and students. And so I'm going to think about that again. So think about a conversation. It can be personal or it can be professional. And if you can think of something as a coach, that would be great. Think of some examples of the positive discourse and the negative discourse and how it made you feel. And then what are some ways that you might shift that? And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do that, because these conversations are going to be the center of our inquiry today, and we want you to have one to hold on to. Okay, we're almost to the end of our time, so be sure that you are thinking about some ways that you might shift or might have shifted the conversation that you had to make it more positive. And then also about how this kind of positive and negative discourse is happening in the virtual and hybrid reality. All right, so we'll be touching on this again because all of these topics are going to appear on and off throughout the entire time together. Here is the appreciative inquiry 4D cycle. I gave you a copy of this and linked it in the digital handout because I feel like this is something that you can use with your teachers, but also just so you would have it and it wouldn't just be on the slide. So I'm going to introduce this to you, and then I'm going to show you a video that talks about the appreciative inquiry cycle. We have, of course, it is a cycle, and in the middle we want that positive core. It was introduced by the philosopher David Cooper-Ryder. We have discovery, that you appreciate what is. Then we have the part where we dream and imagine what might be. And then we have to have design and determine what should be. And then we have our destiny where we create what will be. So we're going to watch a video, and Jennifer, you can help me make sure it comes through. So we're going to practice with this, and you are going to have to unmute in order to do this. But we want to take all of the ideas that are in this chart and in the video that we just saw, and we want to practice this. And so we are going to, that's a document. Okay, that's the document you need to go to. So I need to put that in your, oops, let me go back in the chat. Hold on, let me get that and put it in the chat. I have given you, I actually think I put it, Jennifer, if you'll look, I think I put it in the handout.
The reflection questions.
Yes, for appreciative
it's there.
inquiry.
Yep.
Okay.
It's right
all right.
under the appreciative inquiry handout. It's, yep.
Okay, so if you'll pull those up, I'm going to go back in present mode then. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the 6 questions, and I'm going to get, I'd like for at least a couple of you to unmute and be willing to be a little transparent. But if you, I wanted you to have your own copy of these questions. And so the first question is, and if we could just have some very brave people, what is going well personally for you?
Well, we are in the season of life with a teenager in our home, and she is doing better as she draws closer to adulthood.
Oh, good. Thank you for that. Somebody else want to share?
It's still kind of school related, but I have teenagers that are having to navigate being at home with no parents and doing schoolwork 3 days a week. And one of those is not traditionally very responsible or organized. So we've actually made a lot of progress with that and getting to a point to where work's done when it should be.
Very good.
And
That's a win.
Yeah, she's working like 8:30 to 3 now on schoolwork 3 days a week by herself instead of till 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Wonderful. That is going very well. All right, the second question, we can have a couple of people volunteer. What is going well professionally?
I think with, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think with this being my second year as a reading coach, I know more of what to expect. I know the teachers' personalities, how to support them a little bit more. So it's really helpful because this was only my second year in the school also. So I came in not knowing anyone. So it's been helpful to get to have already know everyone when you start out a new school year.
Yes, and thank you for that because our first year coaches need to hear that. Somebody else?
Being new to the state of South Carolina and to this new building and to these teachers, this is not my first year being a coach. This is actually my 8th year of being a coach. So I knew coming in, building relationships was going to be my first thing I did. And I'm now starting to get into classrooms, and the teachers have been so welcoming and so, I don't want to say needing my little tidbits of advice of changing what I would do in a classroom, but they have been so receptive to it.
Wonderful.
And that's been awesome.
Okay, our next question. What is your dream for this month?
That I can start a PLC or a book study that everyone will get excited about.
Yes.
the intervention will begin and be successful, and teachers will feel like it is not something they have to do, but rather something that they want to do and that they can use to drive, the growth of their learners.
I love that one. I love it. That would be a great dream to have, especially with that universal screener data. Okay, how about this year? A dream for this year?
I'll go, Sandy. I dream that everybody's going to love us so much and just love to come visit with us every month virtually and not pull their hair out.
Oh, I dream that too. I'm right there with you. All right. Somebody else?
I think my dream, with this being my first year as a reading coach, is to help the teachers, just to help them the best that I can meet their goals to help their students grow, and to be able to stay with that all year long, and to be there to help them troubleshoot when there's problems and to help with any kind of intervention they need, just as a support, a role, a support for them.
Yes, I'm going to believe that for you. Okay, what do you appreciate about your school or district?
I think I appreciate transitioning. I transitioned into this role. This is my first full year as a coach from being the interventionist from the last 4 years. So I appreciate my colleagues respecting my advice and not necessarily looking at me as an evaluator, but more so as someone that can provide them with additional support.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and speak up. I'm new as a literacy coach this year, and I'm in a charter school, and they have been phenomenal with supporting my role, and the RTI teachers have been amazing, and the staff has been amazing. And so I came in with 2 new programs that no one was super thrilled about implementing that were new during a year of online teaching and teaching 5 days a week. But it's been embraced, and I think it's working really well, and I think I'm in a great school environment. So that's really helped.
Wonderful. Okay, the last one. What do you appreciate about your coworkers?
Okay, I mainly just appreciate the fact that they are so dedicated to the students here at our school. They see the differences, they see the challenges, and they see the great things. They look at the positive things, and I just appreciate how they always just go above and beyond to do anything they can for our students.
Wonderful.
I want to jump in because Rebecca Strong said her mic's not working, and she said she appreciates her administrative support.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And another person, Sherry Turner Fowler, said, my coworkers are committed to changing the narratives of our scholars.
Oh, okay. Commitment. We love commitment.
I was going to add, I appreciate, I guess, my coworkers just jumping in and helping me. Being a first year coach, they've graced me a lot.
We need a lot of grace.
But they've also allowed me to help in ways that I am naturally strong. So I appreciate the support.
Good. All right, so we're kind of done with this reflection part today. But I think that you can see how wonderful it makes you feel at the end of this discussion when you've heard all these great things, and how we need to practice this with our teachers in our schools. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about today is the Clearness Committee. And I just want to say that my good friend Myron, one of the other LSs, she is so good at doing these Clearness Committees. And I remember kind of giggling about it in the beginning, and then I realized how valuable this is. And so I'm going to take you through it, and then we're going to watch a video. The focus person shares an area of concern. So I've done clearness committee with Myron and another LS, and kind of, you can do it in a group, but you could also do it just with 2 people. But the focus person is the one sharing the area of concern. And the group members will ask open and honest questions. This is the hard part. You cannot offer advice or make any connections with the area of concern. The focus person may choose to not answer a question, and the pace of the questions must be slow and deliberate. The goal is to support colleagues in their area or areas of concern by allowing them to think and reflect on the possibilities and consider all other viewpoints without telling or leading. And I'm just going to tell you that's the hard part. And we are going to practice this later. This is just not a good, with all these people, this is just not a great time to do this, but I do want to play a video for you. I've given you this website, courageandrenewal.org. There are just, you could just mine this. There are so many things, but Parker Palmer is going to share one of the clearness committees with you. This is a 6-minute video. And then after this video, I just want you to think and maybe, jot down clearness committee, and then jot down how might you utilize the clearness committee principles in your coaching work. And I will tell you this, you got to work at it. You got to practice, and that's why we will come back to it. Jennifer, can you hear that?
We have all kinds of sacred questions inside of us. What's the meaning of our lives? What's the purpose of our lives? What about death? All these deep questions of meaning. And so it seems to me that every wisdom tradition that I know anything about, East and West, is in the first instance a way of knowing that invites us into understanding the unity of all things and learning about how to integrate ourselves more deeply into the unity that we are and the unity that's all around us, the oneness. And every wisdom tradition gives us practices that help that happen, help us claim wholeness. The Clearness Committee is a practice invented in the middle of the 17th century by the early Quakers, who believed deeply, as I believe, that every person has an inner teacher, a source of inner truth, which for me is the same as soul or selfhood or identity and integrity. And the question was how to help people get in touch with that, how to open a person's life to hear that inner truth more deeply, because we all know how difficult that is in the noise of the world and in the rush of our lives and with our own egos constantly at work. A small group of people, 5 or 6 people, gather for 2 hours with a person who's got a question that he or she is wrestling with, an issue, a problem, a decision they're trying to make, a discernment they're trying to make. And for 2 full hours, those 5 or 6 caring, competent adults operate with a very simple rule. They cannot speak to that so-called focus person, the person with the issue, in any other way except to ask an honest, open question. It sounds simple, but if you imagine not only the length of time involved, 2 hours, but what's involved in asking honest, open questions, which turns out to be very challenging and very demanding. Have you thought about seeing a therapist is not an honest, open question? It represents the kind of question we like to ask, which is sort of has built-in advice. We ask a question as if we had a question, when in fact we're trying to advise someone. And the purpose of this process is to lay all of our advice aside, all of our wisdom, all of our guidance, all of our thoughts about what this person ought to do, and to create a space that's to be occupied by that person and that person alone, to listen as closely as possible to his or her inner teacher, aided by questions that strip away whatever obstacles may lie between my ears and my truth. I feel a huge sense of responsibility about this. I always have and I always will. I feel fierce about it because I'm the person who has said to several people, in this case, including myself, we're going to create a space here in which your soul will be safe. I've offered that as a promissory note. And I take that very seriously. I've been around the human potential movement too long, and I've seen too many people wounded, even though safety was promised. They were invaded, exploited, manipulated. I do not want that to happen on my watch. Period. Amen. And so I want to put this in such a way that you get a little scared about your responsibility, because you should be. Not so scared you're paralyzed and not able to do it, but aware that we are suspending the normal rules of social discourse in a very profound way and inviting you into a parallel universe, an alternate reality. The core of that alternate reality is very simple. It is the conviction that this person has an inner teacher, has wisdom and truth within herself or himself, does not need, at this moment in time, our wisdom, our inner teacher, our guidance. Instead needs access to that voice within, which, as we all know, gets obscured and blocked by all kinds of things, external static, internal static. But we can, in 2 hours this morning, create a quiet space with those honest, open questions that help people remove whatever it is that stands between their awareness and their inner teacher. The Clearness Committee is, in a lot of ways, a microcosm of the whole circle of trust process. And when we ask people, as we've been doing for more than a decade now, of all the things we did in a circle of trust, the working with poetry, the silence, the journaling, the small groups, what would you say is the pearl of great price? So many people say it was the Clearness Committee that brought this all home and that really was transformative.
All right. Okay, so we go over here. If you will look on this page, I know you can still see it. It gives you a great idea of what it's like. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. I doubt that you or I have 2 hours to sit down with someone and do a Clearness Committee. But that said, I do think that now that I understand the idea of it, it is very easy for me to figure out now how to, I have had to have a lot of practice, and this year we will give you some practice with this. And even though you won't have 2 hours, you will learn how to ask questions, those honest questions, and just help you as a coach enter into this idea of trust with your teachers and the people in your building. And I promise you that the more I've learned about this, it helps you in your personal life too. So Jennifer, I think I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Let me find it. That's not it. No. Caught me off guard. I have it up there somewhere. Hang on. Let me make sure it's open.
Take your time.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I had to get it pulled up. Okay. So we've opted to just move right into Module 3 because I'm just going to give you an overview, and then you will do this Module 3 on your own. If you look at your digital handout, there are some links for Module 3. Don't click on them yet, but the first one is this presentation, so you can go back and revisit because there is a video in that you'll want to watch. On the links page, there's also a Literacy Memories interview link, which I will discuss in a minute, and then a link to Jamboard. So now I'm just going to take you through this. We have made a little change today, so we're not going to lunch yet. We're just going through this because this was not pre-recorded, so I just want to go through the module with you quickly to set you up so you know what you're going to be doing, and then we'll have our office hours. The learning targets of this part is to create a personal literacy timeline, make connections to others' personal literacy experiences, and connect literacy timelines to the work of coaching. So you're going to explore your personal connections to literacy. You're going to talk about, you would in a normal setting, talk to someone or interview someone asking these questions, but you're just going to have to ask yourself these questions. And sometimes when I've done this, I want to answer them myself anyway, because it makes me think of things from my past. There's a link that I told you that says Literacy Memories interview link. It has more questions, but that's where this came from. So thinking about these will help you craft your timeline. So you'll use the questions, and then you'll craft your timeline using the Google Jamboard, which is also on that link